them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, 'cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, 'cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, 'cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, 'cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. The Eye Test with Pierre McGuire and Jimmy Murphy.
The Stanley Cup winning Colorado Avalanche. And after 22 years, Raymond Bour
The sickest NHL podcast. It's gonna be sick.
And welcome to another edition of the Eye Test here on the Sick Podcast Network. He's Pierre McGuire. I am Jimmy Murphy. And we will continue our Metro Division preview here, focusing on the Pittsburgh Penguins and the New York Islanders today. And joining us shortly will be our good friend and longtime Penguins analyst and former Penguins player as well, and a good friend of Pierre McGuire's. Our friend Phil Bourque will be joining us to break down what he sees for the upcoming season for the Pittsburgh Penguins. And then Pierre and I will take a look at the New York Islanders before we get into the Q&A with you. But Pierre, before we get to Phil, let's just some news around the NHL today. And one of the things is multiple reports saying that Igor Shesterkin has made it known that he will not negotiate in season. So if they want to get an extension done before the end of the upcoming season, then they need to do it within the next few weeks, next couple of weeks or so. So your take on that. And also, we've said it before that it's kind of tied into what's going on with the Bruins and Swayman. There has been no movement there. What I'm being told right now is it's pretty much at a standstill. And Swayman, much like Shesterkin, is looking at himself in a role that he can help reset the goalie market. And Pierre LeBrun mentioned it on TSN. We've said it a couple times on this podcast. Goalies have been underrated, one could argue, in terms of what they've been paid over the last 7 to 10 years. Some teams have seen they could get by with a 1A, 1B and not give the superstar money to a goalie. But it looks like these two goalies right now want to change that, Pierre.
Well, good luck. This is my first thing, because if you're trying to push me around as a GM, you're not going to be very successful. Once a GM capitulates to being pushed around, they got no future, because every agent in the world is going to gang up on them. Negotiation shouldn't be done in public. I can tell you right now, I haven't seen one disparaging thing about the negotiation said by Chris Drury, and I haven't seen one disparaging thing said by Donnie Sweeney in the negotiation.
Yep.
So I don't believe that the pressure tactics will work. That's just my own opinion. Eventually they might, but we've talked about dates. There's serious dates, hard dates you got to hit.
Mm-hmm.
One of the hard dates is already passed for Swayman and Sweeney, and that was to get them into camp. The next date is for the start of the regular season. That looks like it's probably not going to happen. Mm-hmm. So then there's one final date, and that's December the 1st on Swayman.
Mm-hmm.
And if he's not signed, he's not playing this year.
Yeah.
So that I think personally that would be malpractice by the agent. I do, and I like Louis Gross. He's a very good agent, but
yes, he's
once a player misses a year of paychecks, I think that's wrong.
Well, Pierre, you termed it last week on here. He becomes a depreciated value asset.
For 1 year, he is.
Yeah,
because he's never going to make that money back.
Mm-hmm.
And in terms of the New York Rangers and their situation with Shesterkin, he's got a contract for this year. I don't know if this has been manifested by the media. I don't know.
That's what I'm wondering.
I don't know if this has been manifested by the agent, but usually, it's. Last I checked, did he ever get to a Stanley Cup final?
No.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to make sure.
Neither goalie has.
No, I wanted to make sure that I understood that.
Yeah, I know. And
I'm not picking a fight with either player or either agent. I'm just telling you. Like,
you're stating facts, Pierre. I don't take it that way.
You asked me a question about, where does this – if you're – I don't know what the organizational philosophy is of the New York Rangers, but I haven't seen a negative thing come out of the Rangers camp about Shesterkin from Drury or the coaching staff led by Peter Laviolette or anybody else. And it's the same thing in Boston. I haven't seen one negative thing from the people negotiating on the team side.
Pierre, I'm completely in agreement with everything you're saying. And, you beat me to it, because after you finished talking, I was going to say, I get the feel this is, and I'm not knocking my colleagues in the media at all by saying it, but sometimes you need to get the news cycle going. You need to generate buzz. And I'm not saying that they haven't heard things that inspired them or, propelled them to say what they're saying right now. But I wonder, there's a gray area there. That's all I'm going to say. It's so hard right now to decipher what is real and what is kind of buzz. And I'll keep working on that. I have been. But, Pierre, you and I have said it on here. We've said it between each other, and we're transparent here that, remember who that owner of the Boston Bruins is. And furthermore, want to talk New York Rangers? There's another powerful owner right there in Mr. Dolan. So, if a player is going to come into or during negotiations or before negotiations, start to bring up not just himself, but I am representing the union and I am fighting for the union to set the market. Based on the history of the last 15 years, I don't know how good that's going to go for the players.
One of the best parts of my day was today. About 2 weeks ago, I got invited to go to the State House in Massachusetts.
Oh, yes.
For a press conference involving the Friendship Four that we're going to cover in Belfast.
I can't wait.
It was led by the governor of Massachusetts, and she was fantastic. I thought she was
Yep.
She was tremendously polite and very forthcoming in terms of understanding the tournament. And I also thought that Joe Britannia, who was the MC, did a fantastic job. And he's been to every single Friendship Four, and he'll be going back again this year. And it showed me how important it is just to get along and communicate.
Mm-hmm.
And the owner of the Belfast Giants had a great line. And this is what I would love for everybody to learn from. It's okay to say yes. Yes is actually a good word.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I can help you. Yes, I want to negotiate with you.
Yes, I'll meet you halfway.
Yes, I'll meet you in the middle. Yes is a good word.
Mm-hmm.
It was inspiring. It was tremendous. I'm looking forward to having breakfast with the owner and also with Steve Thornton, who's the general manager of the team tomorrow in Boston. But it made me feel really good about hockey.
Yeah.
It really did. There were league commissioners there. Doug Christensen, our friend from the ECAC, was there. The athletic directors from most of the schools were there. It was really good. And it made me feel good about hockey. And now you bring this up, and I'm not mad at you, but I'm going, really? The NHL season's about to start. And we're talking about, do you think the fans really want to talk about the money?
I know.
They want to talk about the players that want to play.
Yep.
They want to talk about the coaches that want to coach. They want to talk about the referees that sometimes are great and sometimes aren't so great. You know what the best part of our game is? People have passion.
Mm-hmm.
If you keep talking about money, no, I don't mean you, Jimmy. But if people keep talking about money all the time, you know what's going to happen? People are going to say, really? I don't have the passion for that. And I don't have the time for it.
Yeah. Yep. And, one more thing, I want to just echo your thoughts on the Friendship Four. We are so excited. Our flights are booked. We want to thank Sarah Stanton of Cara Travel out of Boston. Check them out online. Great people. Looking forward to and you talk about happiness and enthusiasm. Sarah Stanton oozes that. So I'm so excited to be working.
She was there today. She was there today, making sure there were no stones left unturned.
Oh, she's great.
She was an amazing. Like I'm telling you, I don't know who owns Cara Travel.
She does.
Oh, she does.
Yeah.
You can see there's sweat equity pouring into that because she is so fully invested. I was blown away by her professionalism. I sent her a text.
Pierre, you've mentioned, I forget the name, apologize, the travel secretary that was with the Penguins forever that you had a great relationship with. I forget her name, and you used to have. But either way.
Jennifer.
Yeah, okay. I think Sarah Stanton could have been a great traveling secretary or public relations person for an NHL team or a pro sports team because she's tapped in. She makes sure that everyone she's dealing with is on the same page and everyone is happy. And that's what you got to do.
So I texted her just to tell her you were so professional. I was watching, standing in the corner actually with the security
I was there last
detail.
Yep.
I was there with the security detail from the governor. They were cool guys, huge hockey fans. Hockey fans.
That's great.
And I was just standing in the corner. I was watching her, and I said to both guys, I said, she's doing your job. She's hustling everybody around and keeping them safe. It was amazing. She was really good. Really, really good.
You said something interesting in Pierre before we were mentioning Cara Travel and Sarah Stanton. You were talking about, everybody's excited right now. It's always hope springs eternal at this time of year.
Yep.
And, I got a lot of friends constantly texting me, My good friend Brendan is Sonata is just, constant. You got any news? You got any news on Swayman? But as I see his texts and other people's texts, all Bruins fans constantly asking for updates, and I'm like, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, it's just there's no progress right now. What I sense from them, but I wonder if it's a common feeling amongst Bruins fans, and furthermore, big picture amongst fans as something goes on and drags on like this is, what's the danger of the fans turning on the player the longer this goes on?
Boston fans are pretty good that way.
Well, they want their team to win, though, Pierre. And the census I'm getting is take one for the team.
No, that's fair. They do. But I think in the market that they're in and the way they responded to this player, they're think smart. This is unique. It's a different one. If it was a player that was a polarizing player, half the group loved them, half the group hated them, I think they'd swing away from the player and towards the team. But in this case, I think the player's more popular than probably most of the players. It'd be like, okay, if Bergeron did this, was in this situation, I guarantee you everybody would side on Bergeron's side.
Exactly.
Wouldn't side on the team side.
But let's say it was Antonio Brown. And, maybe they're going with the team on that one.
Yeah, I mean, every situation's different. But so, look, all I want is the best for the player. Careers are short.
Yeah,
careers are really short. So when I see this going on, I'm like, oh man, I just feel for the player. The owner's going to own as long as he wants.
Right.
So don't worry about the owner. He's going to own it for as long as he wants.
Exactly.
Players are disposable, and they come with a huge shelf life. Some of those shelf lives are really short, and some of them are longer than others. But most guys are shorter than they are longer.
And especially at that position.
So,
because of the demands of it.
At some point, I think cooler heads will prevail. I do.
I do too.
I do think they'll get it. But there's only 2 dates left now. There's the opening night, and there's December 1st. They had 3. Now they're down to 2.
Okay. One more question on this, and we'll move on, and we'll start talking Penguins. Oh, you know what? We've got Phil now. I'll save that right before our Q&A. We'll get back to that reminder. Let's bring the 29er in right now. Phil Bourque, what's going on, buddy?
Oh, I know what's going on with him. He's going to work already. He's going there. He's probably going to get a latte. He's going down to the old arena, getting ready for the game tonight.
Damn it. I hate to be so predictable. Damn it. Yeah, that's exactly where I'm going. I'm going to get the caffeine. I'm going to fuel up, bring the energy, bring the mojo, Pens and Sabres tonight. You bet.
Except here's the difference, Jimmy. Saturday night it was Pens and Sabres, and the Sabres decided to dress a real lineup, and the Pens chose not to, and they found out it's better to dress a real lineup than not a real lineup. Yeah. I think Phil knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
It'll be a different story tonight. Absolutely.
Yep. Yeah. Phil, going back when you were a player, all right, compare what training camp preseason was like then to now, because it's quite different, isn't it?
You're stirring some memories right now, because my first training camp was at the old War Memorial in Johnstown. Slop shot, right?
That's amazing.
Yeah, and I knew nobody. I was a walk-on. I was just an invite. There wasn't anybody from my Kingston junior team there. Maybe a couple of guys I played against. I didn't know a soul. So I was just wide-eyed and bushy-tailed. I was just trying to soak everything in. And I know there was Randy Carlisle. There was, Greg Malone. There's veteran guys that I knew from watching the Bruins play that, these were longtime Penguins. And I remember that looking at these guys, I'm like, these guys aren't in shape. They were riding the bike hard, and it looked like, and they had the old what do you call them? It was like a plastic suit you would wear to sweat, right?
Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yep.
And a lot of guys were doing that to get to a certain weight they needed to get to in training camp, and it was twice a day, and we'd have bag skates as they called them, conditioning skates. It was a completely different animal. And there was a lot of hitting. There was a lot of fighting. So all of that's gone by the wayside. But the number one thing is what kind of shape these guys show up in.
It's unreal.
And Jimmy, Phil was part of a group, and there was a late Badger, Bob Johnson, that came up with this. We were one of the first teams to do it in Pittsburgh, where we went to Colorado to train at altitude. And we had a huge advantage. I'll let Phil talk about it, but we had a significant advantage probably the first 10 days to 2 weeks of the season because of that, Phil.
100%. We welcomed it. I mean, to get out of town and go to someplace like that where a lot of guys had never been before, not that we were looking at it like a vacation, but we thought like, wow, this is different, as well as the intangible thing of bonding, right? It's just your teammates, dinners, and hockey. It's kind of the, rinse and repeat and do the same thing again. I do find it interesting now. I was trying to get in touch with Sidney Crosby for a charity thing, and through Jen Bolano, who's with the Penguins, and she's always in touch with Sid. She's like, oh no, he's in Vail right now with Nathan McKinnon.
That's right.
So that's where they go every year. Sid has figured out that isolation and that altitude training pays dividends that a lot of other guys are not getting. So you are definitely ahead of the curve by doing that. And Badger was, I'm not going to say he was a tree hugger, but he was an outdoorsman. He loved the outdoors, spending a lot of time in Colorado Springs with USA Hockey. He knew Vail very well. And absolutely, Pierre, you're bang on. It was a big advantage for us.
You know what, Jimmy, was cool about it? Badger used to run this huge hockey camp in Vail. And right across the street from the arena is the Evergreen Lodge. It's still there. And I just remember walking from the lodge over to the rink, and Phil was there, Bobby Airy was there. All our hardworking guys, the industrious guys, they were actually ready for that camp. And some of our star players, they weren't so sure it was such a good idea.
If I could tell a quick story, because this one is,
that's what we're here for.
Badger Bob, you can never get tired of telling these stories. We didn't really know what was up with this guy. It's too good. We kind of heard stories, that he was just a guy that just loved the game. Okay, lots of guys love the game. But this guy was a little bit different, right, Pierre? And one of our first practices, we're doing like a horseshoe drill. And I'm standing in line with Kevin Stevens, and Badger goes over to the scorer's desk and grabs the microphone. There was a microphone, turns it on. Like, okay. And he's Badger's like the mayor, in places like that. He's like, hey, welcome everybody to Pittsburgh Penguins training camp. I thought maybe I'd describe some of the drills here. Well, Pierre, he starts going on and he starts going through the lineup. He goes, look at that guy over there. Look at that big, tough guy there. That's old Samuelson. He hits like a freight train. They go, that's big Kevin Stevens over there. And he's got the microphone, and we're doing the drills, and we're standing in line going, what the hell is going on here? Like there's no other NHL coach that would do things like this, but it was just his love for the game. So it
builds morale.
I don't need to go off on a different tangent.
Love it.
Asking about Vail, but Badger, man, he was just so unique and so special that was just another eye-opening experience of how special this guy was.
Just to build off Phil's point, that was such a good story because I remember that happening. This is another one. We're playing Boston in the Eastern Conference Final in 1991, and everybody talked about how our fast skating team would run out of racetrack because the rink is smaller and the corners are tighter and all this stuff. And I was doing all the advanced work in those days and would convene all these meetings, how we were going to attack different things. So I'm not kidding you. Probably 6 o'clock, 6:15 at night before game one, Badger goes on the ice with his shoes on, with a measuring tape, and he measures the neutral zone. Phil knows he was there. And everybody, like the fans were, look, what's this guy doing? And the management of the Bruins was really upset because he went on the ice with his street shoes. And he measured the size of the neutral zone.
And he measured the benches, too, because the visitors' bench was significantly smaller than the home bench, just so you'd be jammed in there like a sardine. They were looking for every advantage possible.
And I just remember Badger goes, same size as our neutral zone, fellas. Let's go get them.
Let's go get them.
Let's go get them.
Love it.
He was great. He was spectacular, man. I'm telling you.
And then you got a gem the next year too. Like who took over him and Scotty. I remember, Pierre, that story you told me too about when Scotty said, "Go get us an air conditioner."
Well, that was Bubba Baldwin. That was the equipment manager before Game 4 in Boston. Phil was on that team, played a huge role. on that team, and it was really hot in the Boston Garden that day. Remember, Phil? It was hot.
No air
And
conditioning.
Go get a portable air conditioner. And he did. He got one, except it was a portable heater, and he turned the heat on, and we had to change in the hallway.
Well, also, I remember because that was in May, late May. We're playing the conference final, and the old Boston Garden. I mean, it was a relic, But I remember reaching underneath my stall and putting my hand up against the baseboard heater, and the thing was cranked on.
Oh yeah.
So that's Harry Sinden again. They're just looking for an edge. That a lot of the guys, between periods, they couldn't even stay in the room. They had to go out in the hallway and walk around, and it was an absolute sauna bath inside the locker room. It was the Bruins trying to get an edge.
Yeah, Red Auerbach did the same thing to the Lakers. Ask Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
So,
there you go.
This is your job now, Jimmy. You asked the great 2-9er about the Pittsburgh Penguins and how they're going to be this year. I'll let you do that.
Yeah, so, Phil, we were touching on them a couple times in the past few weeks, just sort of looking ahead to the season. And we look at all the teams, and the one question we keep coming back to with the Penguins right now is, what is their identity? And do they know yet? And what's your take on that?
That's funny. I was, just prepping for the game and stuff, that kind of popped into my head. At some point, I'd like to ask a player or a coach, do you know your identity yet? Because I don't think we had one last year. I think our identity was
exactly why I asked you.
Yeah, I think last year our identity was like collecting hockey cards when you were a kid. You know what I mean?
Yep.
You collect. Yep. We had a bunch of really good players. It was like all those great hockey cards that you stuck on the spokes of your wheels of your banana bike. But that doesn't get you a hill of beans if you've got the 31st ranked power play. You really struggle in overtime. You can't keep the puck out of your net. You look like you're stuck in the mud sometimes in your defensive zone coverage. Your number one goaltender is not acting like a number one goaltender. I mean, there's a lot of things that need to be corrected. With that being said, they're easily correctable. It's right. You don't need to blow it up. You don't need, but you need more buy-in. You need more commitment. You need more pride.
Bingo.
And those to me are intangible things that can be fixed in a 30-minute meeting. I don't have an answer. I don't know what the identity of this team is, because they have to start winning games that give you a blueprint on how to win in the postseason. Are they going to win games? Individuals win games during this regular season? Absolutely they are. It could be Jari. It could be Crosby. It could be Malkin. It could be Carlson. They can all win games by themselves. But that hasn't gotten to the playoffs the last 2 years. And it's not a way to win in the playoffs if you do get there. So there's some things that need to be buttoned up here. And it's a huge challenge for Mike Sullivan, because you've got future Hall of Famers. I mean, we can sit back now, Pierre, right? When you're not in that room, you can sit back and go, just do this or just do that, or sit that guy or scream at that guy. It doesn't work that way. No. It's not that easy in 2024 to coach these players. I feel for Sully. He wears his heart on his sleeve. He can't fool me. I get the binoculars out. I know exactly what he's thinking. Right. But with that being said, the sand is going through the hourglass, guys. And, Sid signs a 2-year extension. So you got this year and 2 more. And I think that's where the conversation starts, right? Starts and probably ends is who can jump on the bandwagon with Sidney Crosby? Because Sid, 40 plus goals, knocking on 100 points, played all 82 games last year, right, Jimmy? I mean, what more do you want from this flipping guy? But this is not golf, it's not tennis, and it's not lawn darts. Okay. Yeah. It's a team game, the ultimate team game. And if you don't have a bunch of guys jumping on board with arguably the best player in the world, you just got a bunch of fancy hockey cards.
Yep. I love it. Sure. One more follow-up to that quickly. Sorry, Pierre, I just want to add, he signs, you mentioned him signing, he signs for 2 more years. Again, it goes back to buy-in. Can the players look at that and say, man, if he's doing this and he wants to be here, because he can dictate his future. He can go do whatever he wants right now. He can retire. He can go to another. He can dictate his future, but he's willing to stay and be here with us. Can that translate on the ice? Say, look, Sid believes in us. Now it's time for us to return the favor and deliver.
It should. But that's just words. That's just three guys.
I know. Actions speak louder than words.
Blah 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 on the way. I mean, it if it doesn't, I question the character of the other leaders in that room. I do. I question it. You are not 100% buy-in on a guy that continues to leave 4, 5, 6 million on the table per year.
Right.
To say, I am willing to sacrifice that. Listen, Sid's made over 160 million on the ice. Okay. How much do you need? And that's probably what he said. How much do I need? And he's a little bit cuckoo like I am with numbers, so the 8.7 thing factored in again. But with all that being said, at the end of the day, the 8.7 thing is yuck, 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 ha, ha, ha. But at the end of the day, he did it because it's what his heart told him to do, right? His heart said, leave it on the table, go out and get more guys of what we need. That's basically, and Sid, he doesn't say that to Kyle Dubas, but by taking 8.7, that's exactly what he's saying. I'm leaving this on the table for you, Kyle, to go get me or go get us the guys that we need to at least get to the playoffs.
Yep.
So you talk about guys. Is that dressing room over the loss of Jake Gensel yet?
Yeah. That's long gone. I think who they brought in, Michael Bunting, is fit in nicely, and if you want to do that, I find it interesting that there was so much talk about the loss of Jake Gensel. Right now, Jake goes to Tampa, and he's in a situation where he's got to fill the skates of 91 Steven Stamkos, right? So that's for another conversation for you guys. But as far as our room, I think his name very rarely gets brought up. I think Bunting has been such a plug and play guy. He's playing on the left side with Evgeny Malkin. They've been a nice duo. And he's a Pittsburgh guy, right? He's a lunch pail, steel-toed boots, hard hat. He plays Pittsburgh Penguin style of hockey. So he's been embraced by the fan base. And I think what really drove it home, Jimmy and Pierre, is when we saw Jake go to Tampa, tax-free state, for $9 million a year. You just knew there's no way on God's green earth where we're going to pay him $9 million.
No.
Fair. So Todd Reardon's out as a defensive coach. David Quinn is in. He coached Erik Karlsson in San Jose. He had Matt Grzelcyk at Boston University. How's the Quinn experiment working so far?
It should work unbelievably well. And not only defensive coach, but he's going to take over the reins of the power play that Todd Reardon had too. So some wrinkles. Sometimes just a different voice saying the same things can jar you loose a little bit. There's no excuse. I mean, it's hard for me to even say these words to you guys. A power play that barely hovered around 15% with all these future Hall of Famers. If you know Todd Reardon, if you spoke to him for 30 seconds, you'd be like, that's my kind of guy. So you knew somebody was going to take the fall for that, and it ended up being Reardon's. And if you're a player, I just knew when I was a player and I wasn't pulling my weight and a guy got let go, a head coach got let go, I took it personally, man. I took it home with me. I didn't. That's his livelihood. That's his job, man. And so that's a long-winded answer to your short question, but David Quinn should be able to add some wrinkles. Number one, he should be able to get Erik Karlsson, who 2 years ago under David Quinn had that 100-point season. He also had Adam Fox, who won a Norris Trophy when he was with the New York Rangers. And you mentioned Matt Grzelcyk, who had a down year last year. I know he had some injuries, but he's a guy, he's a very proudful guy. Quinny had him at Boston University. So, right now, I think they'd like Matt Grzelcyk. He's looked really good in camp. He's mobile, good puck mover. He played with Charlie McAvoy in Boston. I think they're going to they might try him out with Chris Letang to start the season, Pierre.
Well, that's actually that'd be a good fit. But I'll tell you one thing: the McAvoy Grzelcyk thing, that goes back to when they played at BU together.
Oh, yeah.
It wasn't just with the Bruins. So, and that was with David Quinn. So I agree with what Phil just said. I would actually do that if I were working there. I'd be begging David to say, try Grzelcyk and try him with Letang. See how it goes. Just try it, because I think it would go very well, actually.
And he's a good guy in the dressing room too, guys. I can tell you that. Just from covering him since he came in the NHL. He's a class act, just like his dad. So good stuff there. Jerry, you mentioned Jerry there. look, I hope he finds his way and he gets this going again, finds what made him successful before. But I got to admit, Phil, and I text Pierre when it happened, I was surprised at the extension and the rush to get it done, because I felt at times like maybe the Penguins are going to look in a different direction goaltending wise. What to you made them sign that extension and believe in him that he can turn it around here?
I have an answer for you, but before I answer it, I want to ask you a question. I don't know if you remember at the time, but it was not a heavy goalie market. You know, you're talking about Jonas Korpisalo, you're talking about Ilya Samsonov. That's, if you didn't sign Jari,
who was it going to be?
You might have ended up with. You know what I mean? So listen, Tristan Jari is 29 years of age. He's got to grow up a little bit. So maturity is a word that's been tossed around a little bit. Okay. He lost his net last year. Okay. Last 13 games of the regular season, when the Penguins were making that huge push for the playoffs, it wasn't Jars. It was Alex Nedeljkovic. Exactly. And even the last game of the regular season, and here's the kick in the groin with the steel-toed boot. Last game of the regular season, we're out. We get eliminated. We have one game left against the Islanders. You think they'd give it to Jars? No. It was back to net. So I'm telling you right now, he's fighting for his life. And I know he's got the security of the contract, but he needs to think like he's fighting for his NHL life, Tristan Jari. He's a hell of a goaltender. He's had pockets of 20, 22, 23 games where he's lights out, where he's one of the top goalies in the league. And I know you're shaking your head a little bit because you forget those moments, because the bad has outweighed the good with Tristan Jari. And that's where you're up, you're down, you're up, you're down. And at some point, your teammates stop believing in you. I don't think they've got to that point now, but they're close. And once that happens, it's tough to get them back. So there's nothing more important. I don't care if you're talking about Wendell Young, Frank Pietrangelo, goalies that we had. If you have guys that will put their teeth in front of a shot to block it for you because they love you, they believe in you, you're our guy, you know. And once they lose that, boy, it's tough to get back. So that's why I'm saying Tristan's on the teeter-totter right now, and he better grab that net and not let go, because Alex Nedeljkovic, I know it's a tandem. They get along really good, but at the end of the day, Ned wants to be a number one.
Of course.
And
Why not?
And if Jari's is Jari is in the way of that, then so be it. That's the nature of that position when you have two goaltenders that are really solid.
The number one key for him, because I watched him play when he played for Edmonton Oil Kings in junior and watched him play in Wilkes-Barre a fair bit, he's got to get rid of the one bad goal per game. And Phil knows what I'm talking about. It's just, there are too many one bad goal games for him, and it's got to stop. That's really well said. A mental thing, Phil, right? That's a mental thing.
It is.
That goes back to what you were just saying, Phil, about having the confidence of the guys in front of you, because if you let in too many of those, one a game.
Yeah, everybody's going to have them. And as a, you know, as long as they're few and far between as a player, right, Pierre? As a player, you're like, that's when you go up and go, you know, that's when we pull you up. You know what I mean? You've pulled up us so many times. Now it's our turn to pull you up, and that's that back and forth, and that's what makes that great chemistry, and that you become a band of brothers, right? That's why when I talked about, I know I was being a little dramatic about putting your face in front of a shot, but you know, when you get in Game 7 of the Stanley Cup playoffs, and you're battling for your goaltender to help him out, you literally will do that. You'll throw your face in front of a shot if he means that much to you. So,
Jimmy.
Yes,
he did it all the time. It didn't have to be a Game 7.
I know.
Phil Bourque did it all the time. That's why he lasted in the league as long as he did.
Face still looks good, though. God bless him. Hey, Phil, another thing I want to ask you, and I'll give it to Pierre. Kevin Hayes comes in. Kind of just sort of one of these moves no one's talking about, but he's there. He was almost traded before by the Flyers before that, or Blues. I don't know where he is in terms of his ability to really produce where he used to be. But to me, he's always been a great, fun-loving guy, a guy that can get the group together, that can help everybody bond. What do you know about him? How do you think he fits into this dressing room?
It's a good question, because you look at some of the under-the-radar moves that Kyle has made. And, my knee jerk of wearing the black and gold sunglasses were like, way to go, man. Like that. Like I like all these kind of subtle behind the curtain moves with Cody Glass and Blake Lizotte. And, you mentioned Grzelcyk but Kevin Hayes is an interesting player. You think he's 35. He's only 31.
Yep.
6'5", big body, can play the power play, likes the half wall. Had 13 goals last year, playing in a very, very limited role for the St. Louis Blues. But I think he's coming into a room that's very healthy for him because he doesn't have to be the guy. He doesn't even have to be the second guy. Might not even have to be the third guy, So if he can go out and get you 15 goals and get you, 4, 5 on that second power play unit, be a pretty good score, right? And for choice of better words, he's kind of a member of that Massachusetts Mafia, right?
Oh, yeah.
That group down there.
That's why I got to mention him. You know that.
Right? You mentioned Quinny, Mike Sullivan, Grzelcyk. Like, he knows all those guys, right? And so not that you want him to feel comfortable, but you want him to feel confident in his comfort level. Right. And I think he's got something to prove, like Grzelcyk, like Cody Glass, even Blake Lizotte feels like he's coming into an environment like, okay, maybe might not be here in a couple of years, but I can actually use this as a springboard to get my game back again. And okay, maybe they can't pay me here in Pittsburgh, but they'll pay me someplace else. So I say, use us. Go ahead and use us all you want, Hazy. And just a sidebar on that, on Kevin, I think we all collectively pull for him, right? Yeah. Really, really, really good friend with Johnny Gaudreau, right? Yep. And a couple of years ago, he loses his brother Jimmy, right? So, that's a guy that easily could have just said, you know what? My heart has absolutely been lit on fire. I'm out, but he's not. He's still in battling and fighting. And you pull for it. You want something good to happen for Kevin Hayes, and hopefully it's here in the Berg.
Well said.
Yeah, that's really well said, because that's where I was going next. I was also going to bring up the third part of that, and that was last year with the Cutter Gauthier situation when he got traded out of Philadelphia.
Oh, yeah.
And he was getting shredded on social media from pillar to post. And to his credit, John Tortorella, this is to Phil's point, stepped up and stepped up big for Kevin Hayes, which was fantastic. So I give John a lot of credit there. But this is why what Phil said really resonates with me. Those guys are really sensitive to what happened to Jimmy Hayes. They really understand what happened to the Gaudreau brothers, and they know how it's affected Kevin. And I think this will help Kevin huge. So what Phil said is spot on.
Yeah, it's an escape. That's what it is. It's an escape valve.
And the one person that's sensitive to all those things, Pierre, more than anybody else in that room, is the captain.
Yeah, 87 gets it. He
gets it, and he will have Kevin Hayes back 100%. And make sure that if his game kind of falters a little bit or goes by the wayside, or maybe he's some of the emotions are grabbing him, Sid will be the first guy by his side.
Perfect. Jimmy, I'm so glad you got the old 2-9er on.
I am too, my man.
Keeps blowing me off. You just go to work. I'll talk to you tomorrow.
Yeah, we'll get you on again, my man. Appreciate you taking it. It's a pleasure.
I enjoyed it.
Before I let you go, I got this. They keep asking. There's a question here for you on Twitter below our tweet that you were going to be on, and somebody says, "Talk to us about that funky penalty shot you took back in the day." Do you know what they're talking about?
Yes, he does.
It was just a sleepy December game in 1990 against the Detroit Red Wings, and in practice you kind of mess around after practice. Well, I started taking the toe of my stick, turning my stick over and using the toe and pinning it to the ice. I pinned the puck to the ice, rather. And I got pretty good at it, where I come in on breakaways and I, give it a how do you do, see you later. And then we have keep away in the neutral zone and I do it. And, how do you do, see you later. And my teammates finally said, oh, yeah, okay, tough guy. Try it in a game. Okay. And so, listen. I knew I was in the NHL, but I also knew I was in the entertainment business. Yeah. So I went out to block a shot. I think it might have been Lee Norwood, of all players. He buried it right into my shin guards, right at our blue line, right in front of our bench. The puck hit my shin guards and just dribbled out to center ice. and I was gone. I never even broke stride when I went out to block the shot. So I was off to the races. Nobody near me. And I picked the puck up at center ice, and there was just kind of this quiet, encouraging voice, almost like the little devil with this sitting on my shoulder saying, do it. Do it. They're laughing at you. Now's the time to do it. I said, all right, I'm going to do it. And I turned the toe of my stick over on the top of the puck. The goaltender was, help me with the name, Pierre, Chevelday. What was his first name?
Jim Chevelday.
Jim Chevelday.
Jim Chevelday was the goaltender, and he read it like a book, and I ended up burying it into his left pad. Here's the funny part of the story, actually. Oh, 2 parts, real quick. I'll make it quick.
That's all right.
Gerard Gallant was on the ice.
Oh, gosh.
And you know Gerard, he was a tough customer.
Yeah.
Was he?
And he's old school. Old school.
Yep.
Even back in 90, he was old school. He was pissed. He wanted to fight me. The two of us end up, and we're shoving and pushing. He's giving me the dirty glove in the face. We end up in the penalty box. And he's Turk, right? Yep. He's like, Bourque, what are you doing? He goes, you're better than that. You're a better player than that. What are you trying to embarrass us? He was livid. Like he had like snot coming out of his nose. He was so mad at me. So I look over in the stands, and people are trying to describe to their people they were sitting next to about what I did. I'm just like, oh my God, what happened here? I look over right across the ice at my bench. My teammates got their glove on the boards. They're like, yeah, way to go. You did it. So anyways, here, I'll finish it. I'll wrap up the story. We go in the locker room. It's a 1-1 game against the Wings. And we go in the locker room. Badger Bob's the coach. He doesn't usually say too much. He comes in the locker room. He's like, okay, boys, pretty good period. He goes, let's watch that Eisenman. You know, he's kind of hanging out by the red line a little bit. We got to make sure, let's get back to that forecheck. And he goes, and Bourque. In all my days of coaching, I've never seen that before. And it's just long pause.
Quiet pause, yeah.
And then I barely look up. You know, I'm looking down on my skates. I can kind of look up, you know. And he goes, and I'll never see it again, right? I said, yeah, coach. He goes, okay, let's go get him. And that's it. Nothing else was ever said about it again.
Oh gosh, God bless you.
That's good.
You need your own podcast, Bourque. That's all I have to say.
All right.
Anyhow,
man.
good times. Thanks a lot.
Jimmy. Let him
Yeah,
go.
go to
He's
work.
gotta
Enjoy
go
the game. Enjoy the season. We'll get you on down the line, buddy.
Love you guys.
See you,
Okay.
Phil.
Good
All
hockey
right,
talk.
2-9
All
joining
thanks.
us here. Phil Bourque joining us here on the eye test. What do you say to that, Pierre?
Oh, I've seen the movie from a lot of different positions. It's all good.
God bless him.
One of my favorite players to have had the ability to work with over time.
Yep.
Spent a lot of time with Phil on and off the ice, and one of my favorite guys.
I'm with you on that.
You know, what people don't know about Phil, he's one of the first kids from the Massachusetts area to actually not go to school and go play major junior at a time when that was not something that was happening very often with Boston-raised players.
Yep.
But he did that, and he was really a programmable player. I really enjoyed coaching him because I had to work with him a lot, and he was one of those guys you really enjoyed working with.
Seems like he was a glue guy for sure.
He was.
Yeah.
On those two teams that won in 91 and 92, he was really a glue, really big important glue guy.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
Pierre, we're already at the 45-minute mark. I'm wondering, do we go to Q&A and we push the Isles till tomorrow? What do you think?
Push Islanders to tomorrow because I don't want to
That's right.
shortchange them, especially because of the respect I have for their general manager, number one, and their new head coach,
Yep.
who I think is going to be a critical component to their well-being this year in Patrick Roy.
Yep.
So let's do the Betway read and let's get to our questions.
Let's do that. We'll do that. And I always love getting to these questions. So, yes, exactly. Let's talk to you about Betway right now. Happy to have them back on board with the eye test on the Sick Podcast Network here again. And Betway is your leading global online betting and gaming brand. Follow your gut instinct. Go with Betway. Go on betway.com or scan the QR code to join the action. Must be 18 plus and play responsibly. Pierre, I was very surprised last night as I'm looking around the social media world. A lot of people I don't think were playing responsibly got on the Jacksonville bandwagon in Monday Night Football. I couldn't tell you how many people I saw taking the Jags. This is a trap game, as we were just talking about trap games. This is a trap game for the Bills. And I'm just, are they nuts? Have they watched the Jags play? betting responsibly would have been to bet on the Bills. I did not do that, but I was happy to see that I was on the right track there. So do your research. Get over there to Betway. You can bet preseason hockey right now. I don't know how many, but don't do that. I think I'm with Pierre on that. That is irresponsible, not responsible.
Unless you know the lineups for both teams and really know the lineups, there's too many wild swings going on because a lot of the lineups are not NHL caliber lineups. They're just not. And I'm not picking on anybody because I've been in the shoes of all these decision makers, so I get it. You want to see certain guys, other teams, they've already seen those guys. They're playing their rosters. They're playing their iron. Buffalo, we talked about it 2 weeks ago, Jimmy. They're going to play all their players. They're not messing around. Small camp, get our NHL guys going, create line combinations, defense pairings. We don't care.
Yep.
The other guys are going to Rochester.
Yeah.
You know, and Buffalo's, you see the start they're off to. They're off to a really good start.
Yeah. Yep.
You know. You know, that's the one thing. If you're going to do that kind of stuff, make sure you know the rosters.
Yeah. And one thing I would say too, Pierre, and I just do it from a media perspective and a journalist perspective to know what I'm talking about when I come on here with you and our viewers and listeners. If you're going to look at props and stuff, and now's a good time to kind of look at some of these guys that are popping and maybe taking teams by surprise that nobody's really talking about. So when you get into the season, maybe you get some good value in them because Vegas hasn't caught on, the media hasn't caught. Pay attention to little trends like that as you go in and surprise players. That's what I would say the preseason should be for if you're into going to Betway and joining the action there. And so let's get right to that Q&A, Pierre. Let's rock and roll. What do we got? Max R. Where would you rank Crosby all time in terms of longevity? Right up with the best of them, right?
Top five in the history of the game.
Yep. Consistency on and off the ice all the time. Next question. Alex Ivanowski. What's up, Alex? What did you think about JJ Peterka hat trick? The Sabres need to have a great start this year. We were just talking about them. There you go. They got so many young, talented forwards. Who stands out to you on the Sabres to keep your eye on?
Well, there's a lot, but go ahead, Jimmy.
Well, I think he would be one of them. You know, I'm looking at the goalies, Pierre. You know, we heard so much about Levi, you know, when he was coming up and the hype around him. And not that he's been bad by any means, but, you know, can he take another step there between the pipes for them? I think that's interesting. I'm looking at that whole blue line as well, Pierre. I think there's a lot of high-end offensive skill on that blue line, but defensively, can they even it off? Can they stay steady, help their goalie out a lot? That's what I'm focusing on. As a whole with that Buffalo team, just two-way hockey. Don't be looking for the stats. Don't be looking for the flashy play. Come out here and play two-way hockey.
So Bowen Byram was a good addition. He's going to help the left side of that defense a lot, puck transporting. Owen Power should really start to find his way. Rasmus Dahlin, I think, is finally figuring out what he has to do to be a consistent player. The guy that I'm really counting on to be a huge point producer there because he was hurt most of last year is Jack Quinn. And I think Jack will have a big year offensively. I expect him to. A lot of it comes down to, you know, do they play him with Thompson, Tage, or do they play him with Dylan Cousins? I think, you know, Dylan's probably more of a playmaking guy, and Tage is probably more of a gunner. So I don't know if that plays into the way Jack scores. So I think Cousins probably is that guy. But there's a lot to like there. Now, the scrutiny there is going to be excessive. Mm-hmm. So they cannot – we talked about this last week. Jimmy, they cannot have a bad start. They cannot.
Yeah. And I think, obviously, you know, all eyes got to be on Tage Thompson, Pierre. And, I mean, you know, he had quite the drop in points and goals last year from 47 down to 29. Now, I look at that and say, okay, well, the rest of the league started to figure him out. Scouting, advanced scouting, coaches, they start to figure him out. They tell the team how to adapt to him. How does he now adapt to the way the league looks at him and being the guy? And I think he's poised for a strong start.
No, but the team's better. The team is better. They're just better. So there's more weapons, and so you can't focus as much on one guy. I think
great point.
If he has less than 35 goals, it's because of injury or just underachieved. But he should be better than 35 goals. He should.
All right, next question. Ron LaRoque. What's up, Ron? Pierre, what's the scouting report on Saskatoon product playing in Brandon? Roger McQueen, 6'5" center. Any relation to Steve? My dad's favorite actor, girl.
Oh, man. Steve McQueen was a great actor. Amazing. He actually, good reports I've had so far. I have not seen him play live this year, but I know he's off to a really good start. But I have not seen him play live, so I'm going to hesitate and not give you a report right now because I haven't seen him enough. But I know that the start has been good.
And what you got to love about Pierre, if any of our regulars know, Pierre will get back to that. He will go look at it and research it, just as he did last week with the top 5 prospects outside of the NHL.
And I'll go watch tape and get a better idea. But right now, honestly, at this time, I'm not really watching junior. I'm watching college guys because of the portal in particular. A lot of movement. The top 20 ratings came out for college hockey teams yesterday, and they're all over the map. And I think the big reason why they're all over the map is because of all the portal play this summer. There were a lot of players in the portal, and some teams got stronger and some teams did not. And I don't know how that's being reflected. So that's what I do. And you obviously watch NHL. You're watching all the time to see who's getting cut, who's going to the American League, who's going back to junior, who's getting released. So.
And that team that plays
going a little later.
That team that plays in Matthews Arena made the cut there in the top 20. I saw.
They did.
Yeah. And so did my team out in Amherst, Mass. All right, next question. A to Z me. Question. Mayo is playing his second straight preseason game tonight. Do you guys think he's ready to start this year? Seems like the organization really wants to find out. Well, A to Z me, we've been saying that for about a week now. We do believe he's ready to make the cut and start with the team in Montreal. I think they're starting to sense it too.
Well, I'd be surprised if he didn't play in Montreal. I mean, we had, I thought, a really good interview with J.F. Uhl, who was Logan Mayu's coach.
Yep.
And I asked him.
You put him right in the spot.
I asked him straight up. I said, look, I've made these decisions. I've stood in your shoes. Who's the one guy that, has really stood up and you think is going to be a real good player? And he says, Logan Mayu.
Just like that. He didn't even hesitate.
He didn't have to hesitate. And that's what I thought he was going to say, but I didn't know. I didn't rehearse the show with him. He was standing outside a rink in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
Doing some college recruiting. So I'm not surprised by that.
Yeah.
A to Z me. I'm not surprised by that at all.
Yeah. Habinations over there is just really pushing for Reinbacher, but Pierre and I are in agreement. We think he's going to Val.
He's going to get his chance. Don't worry.
He is.
He's going to get his chance.
We'll go side. We'll talk about it another time, but don't rush prospects. Don't rush people. I don't care where they're drafted, high or low. Don't rush them.
Before we go, I know I shared this with you. I was talking to a head of scouting today with an NHL team.
Mm-hmm.
Tell the listeners what we talked about because he watches the eye test all the time.
Pierre, you shared a couple things, and I have had a hectic day, so I apologize. I'm having a brain fart.
What's being written about all these young players.
Oh, yes. So there is so much.
Talk about it later. No, we'll talk about it later.
But yeah, just don't rush and don't get ahead of ourselves. That's all. That's a main theme. All right, next question. Max R, what's going on? I love the avatar there. Breaking Bad. Can you build a winning culture if players push for the max salary instead of committing to the team? Great question, kind of going back to how we started the show. I don't think so, but I also wonder, as I've said numerous times in the last couple of weeks, if that trend of taking one for the team is disappearing right now.
I think every organization's different.
Yes.
Nobody had a problem with Mario making the money that he was making in Pittsburgh. Now, there was no salary cap at the beginning when I was there, but nobody had a problem with it because they knew he was our best player and he should have been compensated. Without him, we don't win.
Right.
Everybody knew that. Nobody had a problem with Paul Coffey. Nobody had a problem with Larry Murphy. I mean, if we had that team today and they were all getting their max value, probably $140 million payroll. We'd be way over the cap. We couldn't have kept all those players.
Yeah.
So every team is different. What Crosby does is maybe different than what, happens out in Edmonton with Leon Draisaitl and Connor McDavid. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Every team is a different, so it can't be one size fits all. It just can't.
All right, next question. Grok 2.0. Not sure if you guys saw the Habs game last night. and there was 2 nights ago. Do you see the Habs trying to trade someone like Pizzetta or Evans to make room for Kapanen? It's a good question. I was impressed with Kapanen.
Go ahead. What's that?
I was impressed with him the other night with Kapanen.
So it's a fair question. You know, you got to make sure internally that you got enough, because Kapanen's good now, and he had a nice year last year, but you got to make sure that that's going to last. And Jake Evans is a pretty important player on that team when it comes to killing penalties and checking and faceoffs.
Yeah.
You know, what could they do with Christian Dvorak? That would be one that I'd probably look at before. And Jimmy knows I hate talking about trading players. I hate it.
Yes.
It drives me nuts. But if you were to ask me, I would probably try to go down the Dvorak road rather than the Evans road. And I don't know if they have enough artillery right now, so Pizzetta's probably got to stay there because they're going to play a lot of hard rivalry games because Ottawa's better, Detroit's better, Buffalo's better. Toronto, obviously, with Reeves around, it's not a lot of fun. So, yeah, I'm not sure I'd be in a rush to do that. The Canadiens don't have a ton of artillery to do that stuff. Yeah,
and I would just say quickly on those 2 players that he suggested maybe, get bounced to make room for Kapanen and Pierre. One thing I've noticed about this, hockey ops department in Montreal since Hughes and Gorton take over, they really, really value the players maybe sometimes not everyone's talking about. Just the guys that in the dressing room, the teammates know that they're glue guys, that they're underrated, that they play certain roles that need to be filled. That says a lot to me about where they're looking in terms of team building. And that's why I don't know if either of those guys would be moved out, just in terms of what I know they know their value within the dressing room. Maybe not in the media, maybe not with the fans, but what do they mean to the teammates?
Yeah, when they're cap friendly too. No pun intended. And one other thing, because I don't want people inundating you saying, well, Pizzetta's not the toughest guy on the team. I know Arbor Jack guy's there. I get it. But it's not always in your best interest to have, if you're dressing 6 defensemen, and I hope they dress 7, but if you're dressing 6 and you got a guy that's taking penalties, and I don't mean hooking penalties, I mean fighting penalties, that doesn't help you all the time. Usually it's a winger that's doing that kind of stuff, not a defenseman.
Yep. All right, next question. Excuse me. We good? Oh. Alex Ivanowski, Power or Deline, who's going to be the better D-man in time?
They're different.
I don't know. Both.
No, but it's fair. I mean, the thing about Power is I think he's going to have better stopping ability than Rasmus. I don't think Power is going to have the same presence on the power play, even though, there are flashes of it. I think Rasmus could eventually really, as long as he gets sorted out here. And I think Lindy's the right guy for him. I think Lindy's going to help him a lot.
Yeah.
I think Lindy will help both of them a lot, but especially Rasmus. So that's hard to say because they're just different tastes. They're different types of players.
Yeah. Okay, next question. Mike Gaudette, who do you think is going to be more important to Montreal, Slav or Demidov?
So, Mike, let me ask you this question. Demidov hasn't even played a game on small ice yet. How do we know? He's playing in the Russian league. So I want to, and I talked to the scouting director this morning about this.
Well, this is what we were talking about, yeah.
This kind of stuff. Demidov's had a great start to the year. He's going to be fantastic, but until he gets over here and plays on small ice and gets punched in the face, I can't say he's going to be better than Slavkovsky.
Yeah. Yep.
But if he does it, then I'll say, yeah, maybe he will be better. Yeah. Right now, Slavkovsky's a first overall pick, and he hasn't been disappointing.
No. And when he did get punched in the face, he got back up and he kept going. That's really impressed me for a young kid. All right, next question. Vincent Yoel. Afternoon, gentlemen. Do you think the KHL compares to the AHL on talent level? What do you think of the top 3 leagues outside the NHL for professional level talent? Pierre, I'll just say in terms of talent level, I'm just strictly talent, strictly skill. I might lean slightly to the K. Maybe I'm nuts. But in terms of a blend and what you need to play over here in North America, and going back to what you were just saying about Demidov, you're getting the whole package in the AHL. I think it's more strictly talent over there versus grit and character and adapting to small rink and skill. I think there's more of a blend that is necessary to take it to the next level.
The best development league in the world is the American Hockey League.
I agree.
It's the best for the NHL. Sweden is very good. Finland is very good. The KHL of the European leagues has the most skill. It has the most skill, and maybe the most physicality, maybe. But if you were to ask me to compare the KHL and the AHL, I would always pick my top players in the AHL.
Yep. All right, next question. Real Deal Prime. Question. With the Bruins about to see Swayman skip town, well, we don't know that yet, Real Deal Prime. What's the one word that describes the Bruins' handling of the goaltending situation? I think that's a TBD for me, to be determined.
I would say one word, questionable.
That's fair. That's fair. Very fair. All right, next question. A to Z me. Hudson, 50 points, over or under? Ooh. It's a good number to land on right there.
I'm probably going to say under.
I'm going to say under 2. He's saying because of playing time?
That, and I don't know if they'll start him on the first power play, even though I've told you this since last October, which you know that I'm not happy about. Since last October, I told you he will take the reins of the Canes power play. But I think they'll start Mike Matheson there because I think just the maturity thing, and if that give control more and more to Lane as he handles things better. I know everybody's really hot and bothered about the way Lane's playing right now in a good way, but you have to understand is most of these guys, unless they're kids trying to make the team, they're not blocking shots. They're not really playing a lot of scheme penalty kill against Montreal. They're not playing a lot of neutral zone scheme. So they're just subtle little differences. And I'm not trying to belittle what he's done. I'm his biggest fan outside of his family probably. But I would just tell you that it's going to take time for him.
Yep, I'm with you on that. Next question. Postnet on 130. Gavin McKenna, early NHL comparisons, if any. I don't know if that's fair to the kid, but I
don't want to say it, but all I'm going to say is Jimmy knows. That's my pony, and I'm going to ride him for a long time.
Yep.
That kid is good, and I saw him, and I called Jimmy, and I said, oh, boy.
Yeah.
This kid's special.
Generational.
Yeah, really special.
All right, I think we got one more question. Alex Ivanowski. Speaking of college hockey, can you name me a few players to keep my eye out for who will be draft eligible for 2025?
Yeah, there's not that many, believe it or not. So what I'll do is I'm going to make a note of this now.
There we go.
Get you a list. There's not that many because most of them have been drafted. They've gone through 2 drafts, and they're unrestricted free agents. But I will definitely get a list, and you will have the names for tomorrow.
Perfect. And thanks for the questions, everyone. We appreciate it. Thanks to Phil Bourque, man. I could have talked to him for 3 podcasts worth of time. He's great. That was a lot of fun. So thanks to Phil Bourque for joining us, talking some Penguins. We will talk Islanders tomorrow. We will also get into the Carolina Hurricanes and the Washington Capitals. So jam-packed show tomorrow. Right off the top, we're going to get into it. So join us here right on the dot at 4 p.m. Eastern. If you want to get previews for those 3 teams, we're going to jump right into it. I'll see if I can get a guess. I'm working on something. We'll see if it comes through. But if not, Pierre and I, as we always do, have you covered. Thanks for all your questions. And thanks to our production crew back in Montreal. Good to have Sammy back there working the boards and telling us what's going on in the chat section here. We appreciate it. And we will talk to you here in the eye test tomorrow on the Sick Podcast Network.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Eye Test with Pierre McGuire and Jimmy Murphy on YouTube, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.